Hello, Arunima. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
See you.
Nice to Hi, Aman. I can't hear you.
Let me say that again. I'm very happy to welcome Arunima. I'm sorry for this technical glitch. I'm very happy to welcome Arunima to my platform on the essence of life and growth. Conducting these meetings for last 2 months, and we have had people from all across the streams who have joined in, who have performed at various platforms in their lives as actresses, as Miss Britain, as Miss World, and then a Hollywood actress, as rectors of universities, or professors, scientists, and other streams as well. So different walks of life, and we bring you another Kathak dancer today. We've had 2 Kathak dancers, Kuchipudi dancers, sorry, today, and we had 2 Kathak dancers before. And I've seen Arunima from the very young age of her beginning her performances. I've been witness of some of the very gracious performances she's made at various interesting places, even like the old forts of Nimrana. And although she has been a junior of mine at London School of Economics, but then she has grown extensively, and I feel proud of the kind of success she's been having all across the globe, with her centers being created in Brazil, in Poland, and the UK, and a couple of other countries which she mentioned of, where she has opened up her centers in terms of teaching classical dance and taking people all across the globe. Before I begin, I would like to give the disclaimer, and the disclaimer is that we are conducting meetings in accordance with the guidelines as issued by the Ministry of Home Affairs for conducting Zoom meetings and video conferencing meetings. As a result, we will be keeping the audios and videos of all of you off, except for the speaker, that is Arunima Kumar today. I am very happy to say that we have a talented person who has grown from the scratch, built up. She has been seeing her performances, which have been appreciated by various leaders, including the Prime Minister of India and Charles from UK. I've seen her various photographs where she's performed at the Lords and House of Lords and various other strategic places across the globe. Arunima has been a Kuchipudi dancer, an artist, and a maestro. She is now a guru. She has a large number of disciples who are working with her. She is also a disciple of the Padma Bhushan Srimati Swapna Sundari at the age of 7, and later on she was the disciple of Padmashree Guru Jaya Rao and Vanasree Rao. I've had the honor and the privilege of meeting the later gurus of Arunima, Guru Jaya Shri Rama Rao and the Guru Vanasree Rao ji, and it was amazing having met them multiple times during my short duration in almost about 20 years back. She is also the head of the Kuchipudi faculty in Bhavan in UK, and the founder of Arunima Kumar dance company, which is also housed in the UK, where she moved after she started a new life of a new chapter in her life of getting married and settling in the UK. But she keeps hopping between London and India, and I understand that she has even acted in some of the films. So she's an actor also, although I did not mention it here in the program, but she, as I've known, I know that she has been an actor as well. So we will be beginning with Arunima today, a bright young star who has made a strong mark in the field of dance and culture. And more than that, as I feel it's important to take the message and the life of culture and art forward. And that's what she is doing, sitting in London, promoting India and the Indian cultural heritage across the globe with her smiles and beautiful eyes moving here and there always. Arunima, before we begin with the interview on the essence of life and growth, I would really appreciate if you can actually, give a brief outlay of how you see that life or the perspective of life has changed for you from a small girl who was maybe about 6, 7 years of age, because I know as dancers you start learning at a very young age, maybe about 3, 4, 5 years. In certain professions, even at 2 or 3 years, gurus start teaching young girls and boys. So even if that age, how did the perception of life change from that young girl to becoming a girl of the teen, and then from being a teen to one who moved to the college, and then who went to the UK to study, and then finally a person who got married and got into this life of disseminating knowledge and creating disciples all across the globe. Now that is something, you have seen those phases of life. So how has the perception of your life in your own individual capacity, how has that changed over time? If you can give that insight for the first 5 minutes, and then we will begin with the interview.
Sure. First of all, namaste, everybody, and thank you so much, Aman, for having me here. It is an absolute pleasure and honor, and I'm really happy to see you online as well after so many years. So technology is making these things possible. So thank you so much for having me here, and thank you to everybody who has joined the session. So it's a very interesting question. Of course, I believe my grandmother used to tell me that I was always very fond of dancing, and I would dance around the house. So as a young girl, I started learning, formally Indian classical dance form of Kuchipudi, and my mother, was the one who chose this dance form for me. My eyes would light up every time I went to a dance class, every time I learned about my art and culture. And I was very, very fascinated at that young age. I must also say that it was, because of the routine and the rigorous training, sometimes I would feel that it's too much. When my friends are having a great time and, they're going for movies and they're going for parties and they're just meeting, I'm the one slogging in my dance lesson as well as at home, because it requires a lot of practice. So from a young age, it was very fascinating. When I moved to my teenage, there were some questions, there were conflicts, because I always wanted to also study. I also wanted to do my sports, but I never gave up dancing. And I think it was my mother who always pushed me. And I remember that I went for an audition, and the lady there, she asked me to join one of her films because she wanted to create a film on dance theater. And I said, no, I have an exam. And she said, what do you really want to become? And I said, I want to study, and I want to do banking, and I want to do strategy. And she said, well, there are so many bankers, but there is only one Ravi Shankar. So, don't ever give this up, and think about your priorities, because you have a gift from God. And of course, when you're young, you think that all these things are very stereotypical. People say it, but it doesn't really make sense. So I always continued to have another profession, and I was fortunate to work with very great companies like American Express after my master's in finance from LSE, and then with Accenture. And I loved my work, I loved my job. But once I moved to the UK, I felt that there was such an a requirement and such a big need to create arts and to disseminate arts in the way that I had learned it from my gurus. And this gift that I have, this gift of knowledge of my tradition, it needs to be I need to create awareness for it. And so while I was working, I tried to do some projects with some of the companies here, but I felt I wasn't doing enough. And so I thought of taking a sabbatical and just focusing on arts for a year. And I set up my dance company, which is Arunima Kumar Dance Company. And then I never went back. So I never went back, not because I didn't enjoy my job, but it was just that I enjoyed my dance so much more. It gave me, a cultural expression. It gave me an identity in a foreign land. It allowed me to be who I am and to be very proud of who I am. Once I have, and once I gave birth to my daughter, I just felt that it was even more of a responsibility that I, bring whatever part of India I could to her and to her, generation. And so I have, devoted my life to arts and to whether it is Indian music, Indian dance, yoga, anything that, our cultural heritage is so deep and so vast that, even if you devote your whole life, it will just be a tiny drop in the ocean. But if I can actually be that tiny drop, I'm quite happy about it.
No, that's very true. You gave a very beautiful gist of how things change for you and all. But I would also like if you could give some insight on, when you look at life, you have culturally built in any case, because dance, music, art, I see a lot of art things lying behind you. They depict life, they talk about life. So from a normal person who is, day in, day out talking about commerce, business, growth, and so on and so forth, one has, but as a person, when one gets married or when one grows up, the perception or the interest towards life changes. So how was that which changed for you as a person who grew with dance from the very beginning, a person who had a family who valued that values of culture and wanted to inculcate those in you? I understand your younger sister is also an artist, and so given that love that your parents had and brought that into you, how did the perception of life itself, change with those decades as one grew up for you, your own self? If you can, give some more highlight into that.
I was very fortunate that I had, a family that where arts was encouraged. Different types of arts. There was music in our house, there was Urdu poetry in our house. My father loves Ghalib, and my mother is a theater artist. But there was also always the passion, to do a main job, to have a profession. And I loved economics, and I was very fond of it. And my father used to ask me, what is this economics? What does it even mean? Because he's been in the police, and for him, service to community was, key. And he would say, you're making all these presentations sitting till 2 a.m. in the night. What is it achieving? And I would never understand it, because, when you are in a certain profession, you want to do well, and you feel that what you're doing, has value, then you give it your best. And that is what I was trying to do. But I think when I went deeper into my arts, when I gave up my profession and I went deep into my arts, I realized what it has to offer. My day job can never give me that. My day job can give me a wonderful 7-figure salary, which is, of course, very critical in today's age, and a healthy bank statement. But I don't know if I will have a healthy mind and heart after it. So I think, as we grow in our professions, it kind of keeps demanding more and more from us. And I felt that I was giving a lot, but I was not adding back to myself and to the community around me. And it was a very difficult choice. I think it's, especially because you've, worked so hard. I went to Stephens, I went to LSE, I took loans to study. So it was very hard to give it all up. And also the perception that if you are, not having this main profession and you're doing arts, it's like maybe you're not intellectually, there, or you perhaps don't have the skill and capability. But it's really important. It wasn't important for me. What was important for me was to just enjoy what I was doing and to feel fulfilled with what I'm doing. And I felt that my arts gave me that. I think arts, people think it's not intellectual, but it is extremely creative and intellectual. And that is where I found the passion for choreography, to bring out themes like domestic violence, like widow burning, like lots of different things, and bring it through, have those conversations and dialogues with your audiences through your art. And that is an intellectual curiosity, so the fact that you can provoke audiences through your art in itself means you're having a debate, not having a verbal debate, but you're having an abstract debate, which is far more powerful, sometimes than, just spoken words. So it has allowed me, especially being in London, which is extremely diverse, vibrant, and competitive in arts. The best of artists from all over the world come here, and if they can, make a small mark, they've achieved something. So to do that in London, I saw what was happening around me. I went to lots of concerts. I saw what was there to offer. What did I lack? In terms of my own training, because I always had a dual profession. So looking at all of that, I felt that there is, there's an opportunity to be brilliant at something and to, make your art, give it that, next level of platform, which it deserves. Because when I came, it was a black box. I left everything and came to London. I had an Ustad Bismillah Khan Puraskar from Sangeet Natak Academy. I had a great job, but when I came here, I came with nothing. So I had to start over, and people would be, asking me, what is Kuchipudi? Can you do Bharatanatyam? Because that's what we know. Or can you do Bollywood? And I said, no, this is who I am. I'm a Kuchipudi dancer. And so it became even more of a passion and a goal for me to, bring that platform for my art form, so that, a few years later when people come, nobody has to ask them, what is Kuchipudi? And, can you do something else instead? So it has changed me a lot as a person. And even during this time, COVID, when everybody is at home, and I almost questioned how I was relevant to society, I felt that it gave me an anchor, because I have been able to reach out, do so much work, with so many people in so many different ways, working with specially abled, working with elderly, working with children, giving them something to be happy about and excited about. I think that's what lights up my day. So it's finding happiness in something very simple, which is really hard to explain, but I'm really fortunate to have that.
Yeah, so Arunima, now I'll begin with my interview as I was telling you about. And, I would like if you could outline based on your short experience. You see, I normally have people who have more than 55, 60 years of age, maybe 45, 50 years of experience. But then strategically, I've kept at least about 3 or 4 people in a month who are actually, going to be younger, so that we can have a 360-degree perspective of life and not the elderly perspective, as people like to put it. So I bring in all bricks, people from all different walks of life from that perspective. I would like to understand, what are those key essential factors you feel are critical when we are looking at essence of life and growth?
For me, especially now that I'm a full-time artist, I feel life is a journey, and we have to enjoy each element of this journey. It is very easy to say it, but when there is pain, it's very difficult to comprehend the reason for this pain, because sometimes it's very hard. But it's all part of this journey. It's all part of the learning process. So for me, that is the essence of my life, that it's a journey. I take it as it comes, and I learn from the experience, and I try that if I've imbibed something, or if an experience has taught me something, I will use it, and perhaps evolve myself towards that. So that is very important for me. Also, celebration of small things. I think, we always celebrate big achievements. And I was that person, I would always say, oh, I came first, I got best all-rounder trophy, I got, this distinction, I've got this grade. But of course, those are really, really important because they are big things for you at that time, and it's important to celebrate them. But even small things, I made, chicken curry for the first time. So, just to celebrate life as it comes is really important. So that's how we will feel happy each day. Because if we just set very, big milestones, sometimes they're difficult to achieve. Sometimes there are too many obstacles and sometimes we fail. So we might not be able to enjoy that. So I think the importance or the essence for me is to, enjoy each step and to enjoy the journey of this life. I feel it's also very important to be positive. Sometimes it's very difficult, but I'm always very positive. So, when somebody's throwing a lot of problems at me, I will try and think of solutions immediately. And perhaps that's the, the economist in me who tries to kind of arrive at solutions. But I like to be very solution oriented. So I think that is also very important because we have problems all around us. And we need to start thinking about, the solutions to those problems.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with it. Do you think growth is the only evidence of life?
Well, it's how you define growth. When I was in banking, for me, growth was like, okay, I'm going to become the fastest, promotion to manager, and that is my growth. Or I'm going to be, a VP in the next 2 years, and that is my growth. So it was very measurable and objective. But now, it's about evolution as a person. That is my growth. My growth is I have worked with this community. How can I work with many more communities and spread the joy of art and well-being around me? So growth is also it means differently to different people. And I think again it's very important to grow as a person, not just to grow in your finance and to grow in your kind of measurable outcomes, but to grow as a person. It's really important. And I think also very, very important to me is gratitude. I'm always very grateful for the things that I have and to the people who have helped me. I think it's a really wonderful thing to have because so many people help us. Sometimes you feel a certain person will help you and that person is going to shut the door, but there'll be somebody else who you have never expected who will come and help you. So I think these are the things that are really important to just, grow and evolve as a person. I know I'm speaking like a 60, 70-year-old, but I do believe that.
Not at all, not at all. You are not speaking like a 60, 70-year-old. I think clearly you're as young as you were 20 years back when I saw your performances. So, it's not there at all. Arunima, you have we have been fortunate to grow in a culturally influenced or culturally enriched family. And so, we have been talking about, and a lot of speakers have said that one needs to invest in oneself if one wants to induce growth and happy living. Do you believe in this? And if so, then how have you seen that happen in your own life?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to invest in yourself and you have to do different things. Most often we are, when we're children, we are kind of driven by academics, and even the sports or the, arts that we do are also driven by measurable outcomes like, grade this piano and, this level in tennis. I was also like that, and frankly, it gave me a sense of competition and that competitive spirit. It gave me a will to achieve and to win. But having said that, it's also really important as you grow older to find those things that you enjoy and to invest in them. Like I found yoga, I used to do yoga as a child before my practice, but I would never understand the relevance. It was just a routine I had to do so that I could dance. But I think as I grew, I felt that it adds so much more to me as a person. So I invest, more time in yoga and a little bit more time in, things associated with yoga. I was never a good eater, and I would never invest, my time in eating because it was always on the go. I was always so busy. Then, you start to feel, okay, what is nutrition? So you can invest just in yourself in many different ways. And it is the most important thing because you have one life. So you must give yourself the different elements that surround your life. Also I would say family, give family that priority and invest in your family, and then invest that time in yourself to be just happy with the family. That is also really important as a pillar in terms of investing in yourself.
So, having known you personally for a good 25 years, I know that you had people who have moved into different walks of life into art and culture. So any one of them influenced you ever in your life to actually move towards it, or it was primarily your parents wanting you to pursue dance?
I think it was initially my mother who, encouraged me to learn. And I remember when I got through Stephen's economics, I was so excited and ecstatic, and she sat there like this saying, oh my God, now what is going to happen to your dance? And I said, I don't think I know any mother who would say that. Even when I went to LSE, she felt I'm going to give up, my dance. So I think that also is really nice to have as an anchor, that somebody who believes in you and your artistic capability. So that was always strong for me, that influence. And of course, the balancing act was my father and my grandfather. If I would get 99 or 100, they would be, like, where did you lose that one mark? What happened? So we had that balance, which was quite interesting, but it was, a healthy balance to have. So I think, in that sense, I've had, different experiences enriching me. I used to do radio programs as a very young child. My mother used to take me, and I used to think it's a fun activity. And I think that's what I try to introduce with also the children I work with, that, if you think something is fun, you'll do it just naturally, and then it becomes a skill to you. So because I enjoyed my dance, I worked hard at it. But when I came to London and when I saw that the standard of arts is so high, I started to invest a lot of time and effort into my performances. Also, the audiences here, they follow you. They want to know about your work. They give you feedback. So it becomes your responsibility to work very hard and to give them something exceptional and extraordinary each time. So I have worked extremely hard on my art once I moved to London. I remember my first performance after I came to London. I really worked hard, not just practicing, but also watching other people, getting mentored, getting feedback. We are so not used to feedback in India. We always hear nice things. But in the UK, feedback is really important. And it was very hard for me to listen to that feedback, because I said, no, but I have so much. I have so many awards. I'm pretty good at what I do. But it's in the context of you relative to others and relative to the best in the world, So I think that was a very important learning for me, and that made me invest a lot of time in myself. I'm very fortunate. I've had mentors like Chitra Sundaram. I've had mentors like Shobana Jaya Singh, Akram Khan, and looking at their work, looking at them in the studio, how they work, it has been extremely inspiring. The kind of diligence, the kind of effort they put, the attention to detail, it's just, offered at a different level. So I don't think I have reached, anywhere near that level where I need to go. And that kind of keeps me going, keeps me, investing in myself, in kind of, becoming a better artist. There is a lot to be done, in an artist's journey. And as long as you realize you're a student, while people call you a guru and people call you a teacher, yes, I do that, but I'm still a student, and I will always be a student. And if you have that philosophy and that mindset, then you will always, learn and strive to be better at what you do.
I also read another saying which I read was, do not go through life, grow through life.
Yeah.
How do you see this?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said earlier, at the moment, like I'm always very goal oriented. So I always like to plan. And the moment, sometimes those plans don't work because life happens. So each of the times when life happens, you learn from it and you grow. Sometimes you get upset by it. Sometimes you change your decision. Sometimes you change your course of life. So, each time you grow. And all I would say is that, I feel like a lot of people invest all of their life in doing something that they don't enjoy. And I think, today we don't live in that time. Today we should grow. We should grow as a person. We should grow in what we do. And we should love what we do. If not love, at least like it,
Oh.
to a decent level.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned of celebration before, celebration of life. We live in times of uncertainty. And, you studied economics as a background. So I can understand that that's not gone all through when your dance has taken over, but still that some part you mentioned is still there. And when I look back history, over hundreds of years, I see every year there is some new kind of an uncertainty which the world is fluxed with, the governments are fluxed with, every different government has different problems, like every family has its own concerns. It's not a family, you have now a family, your parents have a family, your sister has a family, your brothers and sisters or relatives have a family. Each one of them have their own concerns and problems, not that they don't try to do best. But in these given scenarios, how does one go about celebrating life, especially when you come from a cultural background?
There will always be challenges. And
Yes.
earlier, usually in January, I plan for next 6 months, and then in July, I plan for the next 6 months. This year, my plan has gone out of the window. It makes, it made no sense, whatever plans I had for the year. So when you have these uncertainties around you, I think it becomes even more important to find joy in, what you can do with life at that given point. Like I said, initially when I heard that all my performances were cancelled, my shows were all cancelled, my team was completely devastated. We had no source of income. For an artist, it is, one of the worst nightmares. I had to completely reconcile to the fact that, okay, this is how life is going to be for the next 3 months, but I am, the person who needs to stabilize my household, my family, and I need to show positivity to myself and to my child and, to my husband, because otherwise the family unit, is going to be very negative and anxious. So it was really important to find those small joys, whether we go, the first day we went out for a walk after lockdown, we celebrated, we took a picture, we wore masks and we made masks ourselves. And the first day we were able to make a proper mask, we made a Winnie the Pooh mask and we were very excited. So find joys in, anything around you, because everything around you is, it can be something positive or negative. It's your perspective about it. And I think that is how I have lived. And, there are so many times when my mother will also be saying, this is the problem, and I will say, okay, do this, and then think about what you can do for yourself. So this is how I constantly think, because that's how I keep going. And even in this whole scenario, the first 2 weeks, I was devastated. And for the first time, I felt helpless and I felt out of control. But, I had to get up and I had to accept that failure. I had to accept that act of nature and embrace it, and then say, what can I do given these constraints? So that is how I have worked. Now, whether it is, embedded in me or it's my personality, but in most circumstances, that is what I do. I mean, I did have a near-death experience many years ago, and the doctors had given up on me and said, you're not going to survive. And even at that point, when I was sitting at the operation, theater, I told my doctor, well, if there's 1% chance, take it, I'm with you. And here I am. So that is how I live. I don't like to give up, and I hope that I can continue to, live like this. And I'm a fighter. So I think we need to be resilient.
True, I agree with you, and I I hope the world remains to be a fighter like you are, and it's important to smile your way through difficult times. It's important, whatever those difficulties are. I read also another saying from Rig Veda, which says, if you want to enjoy the fruits and happiness of life, take systemic planting of trees. Now, this is not actual planting of trees like you have beautiful trees behind you, but then, it's a saying which has a mythological and a psychological, importance. As a dancer, as a person who has curated structures, feelings, music, how do you see that as an essence of life and growth?
Well, it becomes your stage, It's like you start from an empty background, you start from a blank sheet of paper, and then you start to, build it bit by bit. I think that's the beauty of art, that, it's completely discretionary. It's not objective at all. But I like to, work with my heart as well as my mind. And that is how I have done it. Like when we did our Buckingham Palace show, we didn't know what to do. It was such a huge responsibility, such a big challenge. The world was watching. A lot of people wanted you to make the error. A lot of people wanted you to fail. But, it was important that I just, was true to myself and to my art. And, we were offered the staircase, which, and I'm scared of stairs. I can't, every time I climb or climb downstairs, I feel I'm going to fall. So I said, oh my God, one of the biggest opportunities in my life, and it's on a staircase, So, and then I used to, climb up and down my own building every day so that I could get used to the fact that I was going to dance on stairs. So, you build, it's almost like building a house. You build it bit by bit, and then you add your colors, and then you add your paintings, and then you add your, so it's a beautiful canvas. It's a huge challenge when you start because, you have no idea where you're going to go with it. But, that's how you do that. And I guess even with life, that's what you do. You build it bit by bit, and then you try to, enrich it as much as you can and make it your own. The most important is to make it your own in the world where there is so much information every day. A lot of people copy your work. A lot of people, many things can happen, but it's important to be honest with, what you want and leave your mark on it.
True. I also, most of my speakers refer to these three words, which were spirituality, meditation, and soul consciousness. They said, people need to get into these three activities per se to actually enrich themselves of getting the fruits of essence of life and growth. So do you feel that one needs to engage in these, or you have had an experience personally, if you have engaged in one of these, to actually get the benefits of them?
Well, I think I'm in my field because of spirituality. There is no material game in my field. The fact that I left a hefty package and a brilliant job where I was, doing very well, is kind of testament to the fact that I find more solace in, in what I do, which is art and which is completely spiritual. When I dance, for an audience, it doesn't matter where it is. I have enjoyed performing even in Mahir, which is a small village where the entire village came to watch us, and, holding lanterns. There were, flies and, those fireflies all around. My singers were finding it hard to even sing. But the audience just sat there, clapped, sang, and just was with you. And that connection that you built is very hard to define in monetary terms. We almost missed our train back, home. But because we were having such a beautiful time connecting, in a universal space. It's not even that you're speaking to your audience directly, when you're dancing. You have no idea who they are. They are watching you, but you're not watching necessarily each and every person, but you're creating this beautiful connection in, a surreal space. And I think that power and that spiritual power or that spiritual connect is just, is why I dance. It's it gives me that sense of connection to, people all around me. And whether I'm doing it through a screen, whether I'm doing it on a stage, And sometimes, very, very difficult platforms. We've danced in schools, to school children, sometimes in, India, where the government schools, they don't even have proper floors, but, I dance and it's beautiful because the children watch you with so much joy. So I think spirituality is definitely the essence of life. It is where every single person must strive to get to, but it's not a very loose term, like it's something very hard to define, and unless you feel it, unless you've ever had a connection to it, you wouldn't realize what it is. I mean, nowadays a lot of people feel like, okay, they can do a little bit of yoga and they'll be very spiritual, or they'll have this meditative power, or they'll have the chakra healing. It's not like that, so it takes years and years to be able to get to that point. Sometimes it might happen sooner, but it's not like you can, again, like climb towards it and achieve it. Like somebody called me the other day and said, I went for this yoga course and they said, if I learn Kuchipudi, I will attain moksha in a week. So can I start Kuchipudi classes so that I can achieve moksha? And I said, well, I don't know if you will ever achieve moksha or not, but I can't give it to you in 7 days for sure. And, I think that, when you're going to strive towards it, you're not going to get it. And
Sure.
you've already did. So definitely spirituality, your consciousness, your own consciousness about yourself and about who you are and where you want to go, definitely. And meditation is a tool. Meditation is just a tool. Even dance, when I'm moving non-stop, and the most dramatic dance and the most dramatic technique where I'm completely immersed and sweating is also meditative. So it's not just that for meditation you sit in pranayama and you get it. Anything can be meditative if you do it the right way.
True. So you also feel, you mentioned about the fact that it did bring in positivity. So you do feel that all these things do build on the positivity in one's life as well, apart from understanding the essence of life.
Yeah, it just gives you perspective, I think, because everything has a positive and a negative. So
True.
most often I try and look at the positive, but there are times when you cannot, when you will
True.
not have the answers. It just gives you a perspective, and then,
as a person who, as you said, is finding it difficult because of the revenues drying up, and so looking at that economic side of you. But when I look at pandemics, man-made disasters, wars which have taken place as an economist per se, I see that economies have rebounded back within a span of, 5 to 6 months after an incident takes place. What's your feeling of having seen the different time zones, different frameworks, and having a mix of both economics and culture in you? What do you see happening in the next 6 months to a year, and what would be your message to the people at large?
Well, it's very hard to explain and to kind of give a direction, because as I said, this year my plans have gone out of the window, so I have no idea. I'm hoping that everything will turn back to normal pretty soon, and that we will all have a normal life again. I think as humans, we adapt very well. So today is the first day that my daughter has gone back to school, and it was, it's a very difficult feeling to explain. I was so nervous because she's going to go back where there will be other children, but there are social distancing norms. It's difficult for her because it's going back to school, but in a new way. So all of us are adapting to this new normal. When the school had stopped, we adapted to the homeschooling. So, life is throwing these challenges at us, but bit by bit, as humans, we are embracing them. We don't have a choice, so we are going with it. But I think the world will come back to normal pretty soon, as we've, now it's quite regular that we go grocery shopping, or we go to the park, or we go outside, we maintain the distance. Now it's going to be reduced from 2 meters to 1 meter. So on a personal front, I believe it will go back. In terms of arts, I feel it's still going to take a long time, because we are totally dependent on public gatherings. If there are no people, how do we perform? So dancers have embraced the digital the platforms and kind of done lots of digital performances and kind of tried to keep up with what we have, in terms of online classes. So it has closed many doors, but it has also opened new doors. Like now I have lots of people logging in from all parts of the world, which is fabulous. I mean, I'm connecting with you, which has been great. So many doors have closed, but many new doors have opened. I did a class with, especially able children last week, and it was very difficult for them to even get onto Zoom. But I think once they did, and once we felt that we were just almost in a virtual classroom, it was great, and it was, we could just suddenly connect. So I think, things will go back to normal in a very phased way. For artists, it will take a lot of time. So we have to find, other ways of generating revenues, which is probably classrooms or online, paid performances. I'm launching Ekatra, which is, Together We Can festival, where we are going to be showcasing small performances by children, by adults, by mothers, by elderly, especially abled, all types of people from all nationalities, to just celebrate dance. It's not going to be perfect because it's all going to be on Zoom. So, it's going to be through a screen, but it's fabulous that everybody can come together. So the whole idea is to create, the sense of community and sense of togetherness. And it's going to be launched, tomorrow. So it's something I'm very passionate about, because again, dance is not something for the elite or of the elite. It's for everybody. When you're happy, you dance. No one can stop you. So when you're locked, you can dance. So that is also a possibility. So we have to find ways of making this work. Economy-wise, it is going back. Shops are opening, at least in the UK and other places. Tourism, bit by bit, but a lot of my friends are driving. So I think it will come back, but we have to be careful, and we have to accept that it will be a phased approach rather than, okay, come August and everything's normal.
Yes, 3 more last questions from you for today. One of them is, we've been talking about happiness. A large number of countries have been trying to induce happiness as a measure of index as part of GDP growth. In fact, Sarkozy gave an assignment to Professor Amartya Sen, who is a Nobel laureate born in India but lives in the UK and is a British citizen now. But, to build a happiness index, Bhutan has it as part of their GDP. In fact, I understand UK, Sweden, and even UAE and Finland have now separate ministries and ministers who are actually creating this framework of happiness. What, as a young person who has another 50, 60 years ahead of her life, given that, what do you think the governments globally could do to ensure smooth induction of growth and happy living? I know it's not like a tablet one can give and you can absorb it and be happy. But then, they can create frameworks. What, in your opinion, should governments do, irrespective of which government it is?
Of course, happiness is the essence of life, right? If you're happy, you've got everything. You can be happy in 1,000 rupees. You can be unhappy with crores of rupees. So right. Happiness is, it's a state of mind. But to be able to have that state of mind, I think it's really important to first have good health. So we are all, those who have been healthy during this time, that's really, really important to have, I think, that sorted. In our country, of course, food, basic necessities have to be met. And then I think people will be happy. I do see that, people, sometimes I go to small villages, they're just so happy. There's no electricity, there's no water, there's nothing, but, people are happy. They're going to the temple, they're having they're happy with what they have. So of course, for a government, they can create some kind of matrix where they can find those parameters that will enable people to be happy and create a perception, that this does mean happiness. Like if you have this much, it must mean that you should be content and happy. But I think it's a very difficult time to introduce such a thing, because like I said, the most important thing right now is to have health, good health and your basic necessities like food, if those are met, because if you're not able to earn and you're stuck at home and not able to earn, it's difficult. At least in the UK we have the furlough scheme, we have the self-employment scheme, but in countries like India, if you're at home and you're not earning and you're a daily wage earner, even if I introduce the index, it's not going to make your life better. So having that matrix, but first getting the basics, being good at the basics or brilliant at basics, that I would say is very, very important. And of course, like our government has introduced Yoga Day. So things from our tradition, from our heritage that have taught us to be happy and healthy, like Ayurveda, like yoga, they are not costly. They don't, you just need to have that knowledge. So to disseminate that knowledge and to have that, that kind of pride in our tradition and to really pass it on, things like turmeric, all of these have already been used. Like my mother used to make fun of me that if I asked you to have haldi doodh, you wouldn't, but now it's called turmeric latte, so you want to go have it, So it's about creating that awareness of, all of the things we have. We are in a very good position, India, to be able to give that, because our scriptures tell us that we had it all. We probably just tried to go somewhere else because we wanted to copy the West, but the West looks at us today, and we need to be proud of who we are and to actually be happy with that. So
I have a question which is not related to dance per se, but then, I thought I should ask this because you have an economics background. We have in India, there's a growth projection which is going on, and various international agencies, as you know, and having worked with multinational corporations before, who do a lot of analysis, have projected that we are expected to grow at 1.9% of GDP growth in 2020. That's January, December 2020, according to IMF, because in India, we look at, April to March and not January, December. And then for 2021, it is said to be about 7.4%, from the IMF. So, and the potential of India. You've seen Indians, you've seen the Indian youth, you have seen the way you have grown and others have grown around you from different walks of life. You're connected with most of them. Given that knowledge of potential, what kind of leadership we are under, whether it is good or bad. I'm not looking at that question here. But what I'm wanting to know is that given those information inputs, do you feel these figures of growth which is being projected by the IMF, they're conservative in nature, or do you think they're too optimistic in nature?
Well, as I said, I mean, I can give you a very kind of objective answer to that. But again, we have too many dynamics right at the moment. We have too many constraints which are unknown. We don't know what is going to happen, in the next 6 months. So in my view, if there is a growth, projection, I'm sure there is enough analysis behind that. I think there is a huge opportunity, if we adopt and implement the programs that we have, been saying that we, want to do. For example, if we want to do Make in India, then today, if the world looks at China as a competitor and, doesn't want to take those Chinese goods, if we can actually build enough infrastructure to make in India and to market, what is Indian, and to get the right value for it, there is enough to be earned from that, not just, in terms of the people who are exporting, but even within your own market. So if I run a dance competition in the UK, I might get 20 entries. And that is pretty good, if I run it for a week. If I run it in India, I will get maybe 20,000 entries. So the scope for doing anything in India, due to its scale and due to its increasing demand, is absolutely phenomenal. We need to leverage that. We can keep talking about lots of campaigns, but if we are not able to implement it, at a tier 2 city level, at a tier 3 city level, because there are so many bureaucracies involved, we are going to fail. So those projections might mean something at a numeric level, but they're not going to mean anything in real terms unless we sort the frameworks out, the what happens behind. So you might get an agreement through a certain office, but then if you have to go through the next office and the next office, and there's just so much of bureaucracy, it's not going to ever work. How are you going to arrive at that in 6 months? So if you make those processes simpler, you make those processes work, then of course it is, it is going to happen. Also, I would say, if we try and become more merit-based than relationship-based, and you know what I mean, again, India can grow much faster. So again, if you want to introduce the happiness index, we need to also ensure that these processes work. And, I'm sure we can achieve it. We have the population within our country. So our own domestic, demand can drive growth, but it's about making our processes and infrastructure work.
Thank you for that candid view on the economy perspective. Another thing which I wanted, to ask was that when we look at, when we all people, young, elderly, look at newspapers and all television, it always gets reflected that only very prominent people, very rich people are always on the cover pages everywhere on the newspapers, all over the newspapers, as a matter of fact. So, it gives a perspective as if life is all about money and power. So do you think life is all about money and power?
No, not at all. As I said earlier, it is not. I mean, I'm the person who's left, money and so-called power and come into a profession, where, it doesn't mean anything. But having said that, I think, again, as human beings,
You're a powerful girl, no? Because you're a powerful girl. As I said, the power of literature, the power of language, writing, music is much more powerful than anything which can be there. And the way one can influence millions of people and be living forever.
Absolutely. And again, being rich is also very, very, discretionary. As I said, somebody might think, in 1 to 10,000 rupees, I'm quite rich, I'm quite okay for the day. And some people might think 10,000 crores, I'm very poor. I need to, get rid of, that person. And, it's just a tamasic personality. And again, if you read your own scriptures, you will find a lot of, philosophy which will teach you the right path and the path to let go of the material aspect, because that just darkens your mind and spirit. So I think for me personally, it doesn't mean anything. And I feel that, there is richness in so many other things, and there is power in so many other things. And, to have that sense of power, I think, is more fulfilling in a way. But being on a newspaper, I mean, it's good if you've achieved something. Like I said, if it's merit based, it's great. If you achieve something, it's great to be recognized for what you do. But if it is about just a relationship driven approach, it may not work. So I think that's what has also helped me in the UK, because I came from nowhere and I set up everything, and it's ideas that work. It's the innovations that work, it's your merit that works. And I'm a living example of that, where we have been able to, do the work that we do just based on, our ideas and our proposals. And you don't even know who's sitting at the back of the proposal, who's watching it, who's accepting it, who's rejecting it. If you've given rejection, you accept it. If you've given acceptance, you celebrate it and you execute it, you monitor it, you present it. It's very straightforward, at least in the arts. So I think, again, that is a lesson that we have to, at some level, start learning in India.
So my last question for today is, that in these times of, plenty, the problem of plenty is emerging up. And what I refer to as problem of plenty is, I remember 22 years back when I moved from London School of Economics from London to US to study at Columbia. The second day or the third day, I went to the market and I asked for bread, and they said, here is the wardrobe. They gave me a full wardrobe, full rack, filled it 20 or 25 different kinds of bread. And I was confused as to which is the bread which I eat. So I had to run back to my room, call my mother and ask her, the bread which you eat is made up of what? And that was something which was there, because in India or even in London, as a matter of fact, you go, you ask for bread and you get bread. So, you want bread only. But here you had too many. And similarly, the youth today is put forward with this problem of plenty, whether it is internet or television or access to information or access of products and services. Now, given that, what will be your advice to the youth and the students of tomorrow as to what should they do when they look at? Because as soon as we grow up the ladder in terms of maturity, we tend to scrutinize ourselves. We decide what we want to have, what we don't want to have. But as a youth, we want to explore. We want to see everything. We want to do everything. And that's where they are put forward with this big challenge and a problem as to what should they do and what should they not do. So, as an experienced person who has disciples from all over the world today, what's your advice to the youth and the students?
I would say two things. I think the youth of today are in an excellent position. They have the benefit of technology that perhaps we didn't have, 10 years ago. The very fact that we can do this live, the very fact that thousands of people can come to a class, just online is fabulous. So they have the gift of technology, which is going to become even more advanced in the future. So they are living in this world of non-stop disruption. The moment you create something, it's ready to be disrupted. So, there is they have to kind of make use of this environment. And I think they are, the fact that we also have Bitcoin. So, we're talking about money, but, there is an alternative to money as well. So, there is so much happening in the world of today that even as I speak, what I learned yesterday is perhaps redundant today. So they have this, wonderful platform where they can actually do anything and, create something for the future. We're talking to this person who's created something in the influencer marketing space, which wasn't even a thing like a few years ago. I'm disrupting my own self, my own old self, because of influencer marketing. So there's so much happening. So I envy them because they have so much they can do. They can be anyone from, a banker, a lawyer to a, stand-up comedian, and there is a sense of identity in all of that. So they should take pride and they should look at everything. So, you're talking about the problem of information overload. There is a lot of information overload, but I think within that, what you want, what is good for you and what is not good for you. And I think that sense of perspective is very important for them, because you're right, otherwise you get carried away. Even in our space, we've had so many performances, everybody's been throwing everything, at the internet. But then as a viewer, you understand, I want to watch this, I don't want to watch this. This is where I learn something, this is where I don't learn something. So, they have to have the perspective, which is slightly longer run perspective, not a short-term perspective, even though it's changing so fast. So they are living in a very interesting, conflicting space, but also they have the power to question. We didn't. When I was learning, whether it was at school or my dance or anything, I would just take it as a given and I would just learn it. They ask questions. Sometimes they rebel, and it's fine because we didn't ask the question. Sometimes my daughter asks me, and I haven't asked my Guruji that question. So I think it's wonderful to have that open sense of opinion and communication, but also have that slightly longer term view of where you want to go with it. So pick it, analyze it, because there's so much, and there's so much of disruption happening, but pick it, analyze it in detail, and then go forward with it. Don't be like in this junk food regime where, you just want instant gratification from everything. Oh, can I learn dance in like 3 days and perform? No, you can't. Can I learn an item and, do this? No, you can't. So those things are really, really, important, even though, the world is changing so fast.
So thank you for that insight. I would like, if there's anyone who would like to ask a question, then I would like to open it up and then invite people to ask questions. Otherwise, we've already exhausted our 1 hour, which I wanted to interview, and I understand she must be having a large number of other commitments which may be there. But then if there's any questions, please raise your hands or open up your video, and we will open up your audios to ask questions. How is the feeling of Arunima? How is this feeling of art and culture, specifically for Indian dance forms. I know you did mention about Bharatanatyam and Kathak and Adhe, who are more prominent as dance forms around the world. But as a feeling of Indian dance forms compared to other dance forms from around the world, which are present in London as a per se, because I know Latin is quite famous there. Quite other forms are there which are there. Zumba is there, and then there are lots of other forms. Indian dance form, as a matter of fact, how do you put it across? How do people see it?
I think, maybe 10 years ago it was slightly different when I came here. But I think today there is a lot of value for Indian classical dance. Indian dance is also very wide. We have folk dance, we have Bollywood, we have, so many different versions. And then there's classical. So, within the classical space, it's I think, it's got its own niche. So it's very, very small in terms of the overall, portfolio of dance or arts. It's, very small space, but the standard is pretty good, I would say. The competition is very high. And also, for you to be part of the mainstream, you have to be at a certain level, and that is what I've always striven towards. So to answer your question, there is a space. People are aware about it. People have watched very good dance performances. So it's not like you can just get by with anything. The level of production, the level of dancing, as a package is very, very important in the UK. And also there is the new genre of Indian contemporary, because contemporary dance is quite big in the UK. So often that is confused, but there is that genre as well. So there's a lot of interesting work happening within the Indian dance space, and I'm quite excited about it in the current scenario, because I think there is an opportunity here. Even in BBC Young Dancer Award, they have a separate segment for Indian dance, which includes Bharatanatyam and Kathak, of course, not yet Kuchipudi, but so there is a growing scope, and because of growing awareness of anything Indian, especially yoga and Bollywood, I would say that there is a growing demand. You have to find demand, and I would use an economist's line, good supply creates its own demand.
Yes, and as I did request you before, we would be actually using some of your performances, short performances, in some of our programs in due course. We are having some global webinars which we are organizing on research and various other issues during this week and even next week onwards. So we will be having that at that time. We were not able to connect it today. There is some technical issues. I was trying to do that just now, but we are not able to do that. So we will be taking that up. I think there is some upgradation of the software done by Zoom. So the windows have changed completely the way they look. But then before we close for today, and I thank Arunima for being with us, I will just take a second to inform everybody as to what we have in hand going ahead in this week. We have a session on leaders of growth, where we are having two good friends of mine, one from the politics in India, from the BJP, Mr. Syed Zafar Aslam, and the other one is another friend of mine from Sweden who has done extensive good work on the real estate sector. That is not only housing, but almost all kinds of real estate. His works have been quoted widely. Bharat, to come in and talk about leaders of growth. And then we have started this program on the women of 21st century, where we are recognizing women from different walks of life for their contributions to their field. And we will be tapping on to Arunima in one of the programs again and recognizing her also for her contributions during later on, if she agrees to our invite. But then we are having three special guests on the 26th of June, which is Ms. Carla C.C. Coley from United States of America. Then we have Alka Srivastav, who is chairperson of the Lakshmi Bhai Mahal Nagrik Cooperative Bank. And then we have Ms. Katrina Koza, who is a director at one of the large banking MSME organizations and entrepreneurship firm, which is actually into creating frameworks for the banks and financial institutions to facilitate MSME structures. And then in any case, on the 3rd of July, we have another. Apart from this, we are going to have how to do research, which would be there as a webinar. It's going to be announced tomorrow, where we are having about 6 or 7 country people, researchers with about 45 years of experience addressing on different fields. We have a medical doctor talking about medical research. We have a psychologist who are going to speak about psychological research, and from finance, economics, and other areas who are going to come from different walks of life, from different countries, who are going to present their views. So we are going to have these throughout for this week, and then we will have other training programs which we announce. I thought I'll just brief that, and now I would like to thank Arunima, and as I said, I would like to call upon Arunima later on for this program which we are going to host on the women of 21st century, because having tracked her myself for about 22 years now, having seen her performances, seen how she has grown and showed the way she's curated the environment around herself, I think it's important we recognize her contributions to the society as well. And we'll connect with her for that. But in any case, I would like to thank Arunima for having joined us for this enumerating session. We will be going on YouTube. This will be on YouTube from tomorrow onwards. So we will share that link with you and the others. Thank you. Namaskar, Arunima. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.